Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
A Palestinian man attempted a car-ramming terror attack in the early evening hours of yesterday when he drove his car into a group of Israeli soldiers in Hebron. The attacker was shot dead at the scene, and 2 soldiers who were lightly wounded were taken by Magen David Adom paramedics to the Shaarei Tzedek Medical Center in Jerusalem for recovery. This terror attack comes at the heels of high tensions in Jerusalem caused by a terror attack at the Temple Mount, which resulted in metal detectors and beefed up security at the Muslim entrances. It's also just one of hundreds of attacks that have occurred since the so-called stabbing intifada began in October of 2015. Since then, 40 Israelis, 2 tourists from the United States, and a British student have all been victims of said attacks. Stabbings, shootings, and car rammings perpetrated by Palestinians and a few Arab Israeli citizens. At least 261 Palestinians and 1 Jordanian have also been killed, with at least 176 of them confirmed as terrorists killed in clashes. Another riot around the Temple Mount over new security measures last night led to the hospitalization of around 16 people, including 2 police officers. Last night, after evening prayers were held outside the Temple Mount, a group of Arabs began throwing rocks and bottles at the police guarding the old city, necessitating the use of stun grenades and rubber bullets to break up the riot. According to the Red Crescent paramedic services, up to 34 people were injured in the riot. The Jerusalem police say quiet was restored to the area afterwards, but the unrest in the old city of Jerusalem has been continual since Friday's terror attack on the Temple Mount, which killed 2 Israeli police officers. New Israeli security measures around the holy site's entrances following last week's attack have provoked outrage from the Jordanian Islamic Waqf and the Palestinian Fatah movement. The Waqf has been calling for Muslim worshippers to boycott the Temple Mount until the newly installed metal detectors are gone, and Fatah has called for a day of rage against Israel today. We'll see if it materializes. In a move that's seeming to drive a bigger wedge between Irish and Israeli officials, Ireland's President Michael Higgins has just welcomed with open arms Omar Barghouti, the co-founder of the international boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. The anti-Israel B.D.S. campaign leader was warmly received at the conference of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, an organization with 80,000 members whose delegates showed their full endorsement for the B.D.S. movement. President Higgins was only at the conference long enough to meet Barghouti and deliver a speech, but the show of acceptance towards Barghouti's ideals and methods was apparent. After all, it was to garner further support for his campaign that Barghouti was invited. Israeli officials from the Israeli embassy in Dublin protested Barghouti's inclusion, and Prime Minister Netanyahu has already expressed, quote, his dissatisfaction over Ireland's traditional stance, end quote, of ignoring Palestinian terrorism and incitement, as well as supporting NGOs that allegedly call for the destruction of Israel. Both Irish Foreign Minister Coveney and Israeli President Rivlin, among many other top politicians from both countries, have spoken out recently of their differing opinions, but overall desire for peace and stability in the Middle East. Despite strong Israeli opposition, apparently this is Ireland's way of advancing that ideal. As the saying goes, not all heroes wear capes, but they do often get visits from top world leaders. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu on Monday met with former Mexican ambassador to UNESCO, Andre Romer, in Paris. Andre Romer was fired from his UNESCO position just 2 months after taking the office for boycotting a vote over Jewish ties to Jerusalem. He was ordered by the Mexican government to vote in favor of the resolution, but Romer, a Jewish man, had other ideas. Unable to go through with his command, he simply walked out of the vote, a move that Netanyahu took notice of. Quote, I'm at peace with what I did. I did it not only as a Jew, but also as a person who believes that these votes do not have a place in an educational and cultural organization, and it hurts us all, end quote. Romer and Netanyahu sat down for a quick chat just before Netanyahu's takeoff for Hungary, but Romer still found the meeting to be an extremely touching gesture. He gave the PM a copy of his book, and later said, quote, last year I received many expressions of sympathy and support from the Jewish and also the Christian world, but today's meeting was particularly touching for me, end quote. Last May, the Mexican former ambassador also received recognition for his UNESCO actions in the form of the International Sephardic Leadership Award. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge were at a Nazi concentration camp yesterday as part of a goodwill tour across Poland and Germany intended to keep ties warm after Britain leaves the European Union. Prince William and wife Kate flew to Gdansk to tour the former Stutthof labor camp, and with none other than 2 Stutthof survivors, British 87-year-olds Manfred Goldberg and Ziggy Schipper. For Schipper, the trip would not have even ever happened had it not been for Will and Kate's visit, as he had not been back to Stutthof since his internment there. but since he was there, he could confirm how hard the site had impacted the royal couple. Reportedly, in the camp's guest book, the two wrote, quote, "This shattering visit has reminded us of the horrendous murder of 6 million Jews, and all of us have an overwhelming responsibility to make sure that we learn the lessons and that the horrors are never forgotten or repeated," end quote.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.